G'day guys. Given we're currently in a bear market, my personal opinion is this is the best time to get financially educated because, of course, in bear markets, these are the times where you've got the opportunity to potentially make generational wealth if you're making sound decisions. So what I'm going to go through today is who, in my personal opinion, are the names you should be listening to in crypto, real estate, stocks, in terms of market timing. And also if you're really looking for just, I guess, a starting financial education, just really to, I guess, launch from, well, this is the video for you. And really, I'm going to use, I guess, the years that I've really put into learning about investing, and really, I guess, cut through the, I guess, lesser names and really get straight to who are the best names in each space. So this video should be a good one. So the first asset class I thought I'd go through today is crypto. And of course, it's the most volatile, where it's the highest risk, but also has absolutely outsized rewards compared to any other asset class. So it's one that I'm personally in and personally feel there is a great opportunity to really, I guess, do some research in and potentially buy up during this bear market that we're currently in. So but the number one name for me in the crypto space is Richard Hart. So he is the absolute one must follow if you only really want to limit yourself to one name. And the reasons are very straightforward. So in terms of the actual education he provides, it's second to none. So he can explain things in a concise and simple way that no one else in the space can. So that's really the special sauce there with Richard. And in addition to that, he also makes price calls for the market tops and market bottoms and times it correctly, to my knowledge at least, every time. So yeah, so that's certainly something to watch. And his calling the Bitcoin bottom will be 11K, could even possibly be a touch below that. So that'll be certainly something to be watching there. But yeah, certainly for education and price calls, there's no one better in the space than Richard. And he'll also be letting you know about really what are the, I guess, types of crypto investments that will get you wrecked. So if you follow Richard, you wouldn't have been getting wrecked by having crypto on centralized exchanges, getting into NFTs, or really doing things that really in crypto terms are very unsound and really not the practices you should be following. So Richard's great for really learning all those fundamentals. He is, of course, the founder of Hex and also Pulse Chain and PulseX, which we'll be launching. And of course, whether you want to get into those projects is up to you. They're certainly, in my opinion, at least sound projects, but of course there are other very much worthwhile projects in crypto that are unrelated to Richard, of course. So where you can, of course, have substantial upside. So, but of course, having his own coins will, of course, they're going to be the coins that he'll be promoting. So that is the thing. If you are following Richard, you'll need to be aware of. But the one thing I would say is, even though he presents himself in a very particular way, I would say don't be put off by it. Spend time actually listening to what he has to say, because everything that he says is gold and will make you more intelligent for listening. So that's the important point with Richard. So if you're looking to follow Richard Hart, you can follow him on YouTube if you just search Richard Hart, or on Twitter, his Twitter handle is @RichardHartWin. So the second person in the crypto space that I consider a must listen to is Adam Stokes. So for me, I consider him to be the best and fairest person in the crypto space. And why I consider that to be the case is he's the real truth seeker in the crypto space. So he really wants to get down to the crux of, is something actually a good investment or not? So he doesn't have any particular biases to particular projects. He's really someone who really quite broadly invests in quite a large number of crypto projects, but really goes after those good ones. And he's just the classic dollar cost average guy. So yeah, Adam is absolutely a must listen to and really will give you, I guess you could say, contrast to Richard, I guess, if you want to call it that. So, which is always certainly helpful, having that sort of second different sort of, I guess, perspective on things. So with Adam, the other thing that I really enjoy is any of his interviews with any of the people in the crypto space. So in particular, his interviews with Richard Hart, second to none. There are no better Richard Hart interviews out there for mine. And additionally, his interview of Charles Hoskinson is the best I've heard in terms of any Charles Hoskinson interview as well. So definitely get behind Adam Stokes because, again, he's really that, I guess, best and fairest person in the crypto space. And if you want to get behind Adam on YouTube, you can just search Adam Stokes. And on Twitter, his handle is at Adam_Stokesy. So yeah, definitely a must follow. So the next topic I wanted to cover is market timing. And for me, whether you're across crypto, property, stocks, commodities, this is a topic you must be across if, of course, you want outsized gains and not to get wrecked by buying particular assets at the wrong times. So the first name in the space is Phil Anderson. So he's the author of The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking, which for me, again, is a must read. It's a challenging read and it's really going to take you a lot of time to go through, but it's one of those books where I'd really describe it as nutritious. So probably a weird description of a book, but it will make your financial intelligence go through the roof. And really pretty much every economist in the world, except for these two people, really get everything wrong. So with Phil Anderson, how he gets his calls consistently right is he bases his calls off the 18.6-year property cycle, which tracks through 200 plus years of US history based around the land cycle, which really determines what's going to be happening next in whether it's with property, whether it's with stocks, whether it's with commodities. You can see the same events happening consistently time after time after time, and you know precisely based on his property clock where we are in the cycle. So, and for those that want a quick spoiler, the next major market crash, and this will be GFC level plus most likely, will be around 2026, possibly 2027. So that's the rough sort of timing at this stage that you should be looking at to really, I guess, certainly take profits and not be too over leveraged would be what I'd be saying. But based, of course, on the 18.6-year property cycle, we know that we're not at an end of cycle crash and that property prices still have a substantial blow off top to come because there's still substantial availability of credit and a lot of cash circulating still. So for those that want a little bit of a spoiler there. But yeah, certainly Phil Anderson is the first person in that space that I would be saying to get behind. And if you want to follow him, so on Twitter, his handle is at Phil_J_Anderson, and also Property Share M1 on Twitter is his property share market economics Twitter. And on YouTube, you can look up Property Share Market Economics and you'll be able to see some of his content there. So certainly get behind that. And also you can subscribe to his free newsletter, which is on propertysharemarketeconomics.com. And he also has paid subscription content on there as well. If you do want, further depth of information, if you really want to get more sort of specific on particular things and really get, that depth around everything. So yeah, certainly get behind Phil because in the space he's really second to none. And the other person in the market timing space is Fred Harrison. So he actually comes before Phil Anderson, and Phil actually based a lot of his work and research around the efforts of Fred, who came before him. So Fred, of course, is another advocate of the 18.6-year property cycle, and he's another personality in the space who's calling the end of cycle end will be in 2026. So certainly watch out for that. But yeah, with Fred Harrison, so there's, for me, at least two must-read books, and if you want to read any of his other books, go ahead. They're great reads as well, but The Power in the Land and Boom Bust, they're the two absolute must-reads by Fred Harrison. And if you want to follow him on Twitter, it's GEOPHILOS, if you want to get behind him. But otherwise, certainly look through YouTube, find some of his interviews. You'll hear some podcasts if you search him up online. And as with Phil, all of his content is absolute gold. So in terms of economists, everyone else in the space just makes ridiculous calls that are consistently incorrect. But in terms of what Phil and Fred actually make in terms of all their calls, in terms of what's going to be happening next, what's happening currently, well, these guys get it right every time. So with Phil and Fred, they predicted the GFC. With Fred, well, he was predicting all the crises before that. So it's really incredible how consistently these guys get everything right. So do yourself a favor and get behind them, read their books, search up everything you can that they go through online, because these guys are really the premier people in the space. So yeah, there's absolutely none better, and you can ignore all the other economists who get their calls wrong consistently, because by comparison, they just don't have the track record, and they certainly don't have the consistency of correct calls either. Also, a bit of a cheeky aside, I would personally love, if there's any Hexicans out there, to organise an interview between Richard Hart and Phil Anderson. So I think that would be the absolute ultimate economics, I guess, debate that you could possibly have. So I'd love for Phil to be able to talk about the 18.6-year property cycle, see if he can educate Richard, see if Richard can educate Phil on crypto, and really see, I guess, where those, I guess, fundamental similarities in views and fundamental differences are. Because in terms of just the sheer quality of minds and quality of depth of thought and information and expertise in this space, there is no one else on the level of these two individuals. So any Hexicans, please organise it. Do some research first into, I guess, everything that Phil presents. Do your own research and double check to make sure that you're happy with everything that Phil goes through. But I'm sure if you do, you'll be incredibly impressed by everything Phil has to say. And again, it would be an absolute dream debate to see Phil and Richard have at it, because yeah, there's just no one better in either space, and it would just be absolutely mind-blowing stuff. And it will also help out all the Hexicans and Richard Hart supporters out there as well, because they'll get some further education in areas that are a bit beyond crypto, as well as also knowing sort of, I guess, what the future of crypto in the medium and longer term might have in store as well. So yeah, that'll be really something special, to say the least, if that ever comes about. So the next space I'm going to cover is property. And these two individuals, well, there's no one better in the space. So with the first name, which is Nathan Birch, well, he's the owner of 200 plus properties. And I'm not just talking apartments and townhouses. This guy has hotels. He has huge blocks of land. So he's really the owner of so much. And he's really done it all on his own back. So they're the things you have to respect with a personality like Nathan Birch. And how has he done it? Well, of course, he's used debt as a weapon, and he's been buying positive or neutral to positive cash flow properties below market value. So he's got that inbuilt equity, and he can keep leveraging. And really, he buys each property with the idea that it will help him get credit for the next property, so that it'll really make it easier to get into the next and the next and the next and the next property, so that he can keep on building forever. So, really, in terms of that, I guess, philosophy of buying neutral to cash flow positive, below market value, he buys in undervalued markets that have either dropped in recent years or haven't really grown. And typically they're your more developed suburbs, not your house and land packages, not your brand new apartments. He really buys smart. So, and look, he'll buy an absolute mix of properties. He has certainly bought apartments, townhouses, and he really just buys the right things at the right times. And he understands where those undervalued markets are that also have your cash flow neutral to positive opportunities. So that's what's allowed him ultimately to get his 200 plus property portfolio with his hotels. He started his own hotel motel group, huge land parcels. So absolute expert at what he does. So with Nathan Birch, you can get behind him on YouTube, which is B Invested. So it's just the letter B, Invested, if you search that. And also he's quite active on Facebook as well. So if you look up Nathan Birch. But for me personally, I'd say as a starting point, just watch through his YouTube videos. Watch through it at 2 times speed plus if you want to. That's a good way to get through YouTube videos. I personally use something called YouTube Speed Controller, which actually lets me watch things at 2.5 and even 3 times speed, which I've found that I've been able to train my brain to watch things at. So there's some tips if you really want to get through YouTube content at a particularly quick speed. So and it works across other platforms as well. So yeah, so Nathan Birch is the first one. The second name I would say in the property space is Steve McKnight. So he's the author of 0 to 130 properties in 3.5 years and 0 to 260 properties in 7 years. So they're two absolute must-gets. So if you like reading books, well, they're the two absolute must-read books about property if you're certainly buying in Australia. So he's an absolute master of that. And so in his early days, certainly he was huge on buying residential properties, and he's someone who likes his cash flow positive properties. So, and if you read his books, well, you'll be able to figure out really, he's got a 10-second rule to be able to figure out whether a property is going to be positive, neutral, or negative cash flow. So that's the level of financial intelligence you'll gain if you read Steve McKnight's books. So, and of course, he's an advocate of really buying properties that will really put money into your pocket. So he's not a fan of negative cash flowing properties, it's fair to say. So he's one that buys smart. And these days he's actually gone more so into the commercial real estate space as well. So he occasionally has his sort of paid groups or paid events or paid different things. But he's one where I'd say he has a real, I guess, social conscience. So with Nathan Birch and the way he presents, he's a bit like a Richard Hart equivalent, I suppose, in the property space, but he won't be for everyone. Whereas you've got a Steve McKnight who's a really sort of caring, gentle type of personality who just really cares about people on an individual level. And he also believes in, I guess, when he rents out properties, he really wants to, I guess, make it a great experience for the people living there to, I guess, really keep them as long-term tenants. That's really the sort of, I guess, philosophy and general feel about how he goes about his business. So a very religious but also very nice guy is Steve. So certainly get behind him. And anytime you get to listen to him, any interviews you can hear from Steve, really high quality stuff. So in terms of certainly for the Australian market, Nathan Birch and Steve McKnight, second to none, there's no one better. And look, even if you're outside of Australia, look, you're still going to learn a lot of the fundamentals from these two individuals. So they will still apply across other markets. And Steve has bought international properties as well. So he's been active in the New Zealand market. He was buying commercial properties in the US. So he's certainly across all those other international markets as well. Whereas Nathan, look, he keeps it local. He's just really, I guess, you're a pure Australian property investor. But look, nonetheless, again, the principles that I guess he goes on about really apply, and he's very much across the macroeconomic space. So he understands how all that works. He understands finance on a level that really no one else really in the property space does. So he completely gets it, and you can really learn everything you need to know about property from these two individuals, I would say personally. And also on Steve McKnight, so his website is propertyinvesting.com, so make sure you check that out as well. Okay, so next up we've got stocks. So the number one person that I consider an essential person to listen to is John Bogle. So he passed away a few years ago, but nonetheless his principles still apply. So he of course was the creator of Vanguard, so they've obviously stuck around. But with John, it's basically, you can just look through YouTube, find all his videos on there, and you can really learn everything you need to know fundamentally to be a successful stock investor. So particularly if you want to just have a passive approach to your investing, really just dollar cost average in, never have to worry about selling, timing the market. Well, the thoughts of John Bogle, again, are without equal. So so other than on YouTube, his book, The Little Book on Common Sense Investing, is probably, for me, that one book about stocks that really is, I guess, that must read. But again, you can get the same rough information from YouTube, so it depends on, I guess, how deep you want to get into all that. But it's certainly a fairly simple philosophy with John, and certainly get watching his stuff, because if you want to really learn how to invest passively, well, there's none better than John Bogle to really, I guess, teach you how to do that. So, and with stocks, that's probably actually, of all the asset classes, probably the one where you can actually do it passively and really do very well over the long term if you don't get stressed about short-term moves. So, for those that want to invest in growth businesses and actual individual businesses, well, Dave Lee is my pick in terms of the best out there. So, and with Dave, look, he has a huge focus on Tesla, because that is where he has certainly made most of his money by buying Tesla very early. So he probably has 90% of his net worth in Tesla stocks. But in terms of the quality of his analysis, second to none. Also, the quality of his interviews, second to none as well. And well, he does cover other businesses as well. Actually, my favorite interview of Dave is actually his interview of Charles Hoskinson. So there goes that name again, Charles Hoskinson. But yeah, Dave is just someone where he's just so intelligent and a bit like Adam Stokes, where Adam Stokes, I feel, is the best interviewer in the crypto space. Well, in the stock space, I would actually say that that Dave Lee is the best interviewer in the stock space. So anytime he's interviewing any particular experts, he's an absolute must listen. So, and if you've got an interest in growth stocks as well, well, all the sort of thoughts and stream of consciousness with Dave is really the best in the business. So certainly get behind him. On YouTube, you can find him, Dave Lee on Investing, if you search that. And on Twitter, his handle is at HeyDave7. So yeah, definitely get behind Dave if you certainly like Tesla as a business. And if you're into, I guess, any particular stock interviews and you really want to get that best knowledge and stream of consciousness regarding Tesla and really growth stocks as well. I think is really fantastic in those spaces. And for the beginners who don't know what they don't know and don't know where to start, well, my personal pick would be the content from Robert Kiyosaki. So in particular, I would say his books Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant are must reads. Very easy reads. You don't need to be an intellectual to read it. You can really just, whether you're in middle school, high school, it's that sort of easy read where people of those sort of ages could very easily read it and understand it, no problem at all. So they're great reads. And additionally, I would say his online cash flow game, which is called Cash Flow Classic. I've also made a video where I play through it to test my own financial intelligence. But really, I guess they're the, places you can really build, the starting fundamentals where you can learn, the basics about investing. And then you can go from there and really figure out, do I want to be in whether it's property, stocks, crypto, commodities, whatever asset class that you want. But for me, they're the really great starting points. Though the one disclaimer I would have about Robert Kiyosaki is that I find a lot of his online content, so whether it's his interviews, whether it's from his YouTube channel, just really, his thoughts more recently, it's a lot of, bearish stuff, a lot of really weird content that isn't nearly up to the standard of his books. So I would say, look, even if you've enjoyed Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, if you enjoyed playing the cash flow game, well, really I would leave the Robert Kiyosaki stuff there and really move on to, okay, if I want to be in property, these are the people I want to listen to. Or if I want to go into crypto, these are the people. Stocks, these are the people. So really, that's what I would be saying there on Robert, where I just think really his, video content, probably his online sort of newsletters and those sorts of things, his online thoughts are really quite poor in terms of the quality of presentation by comparison. And certainly you don't get the same sort of quality of information and really, those helpful bits that you really get consistently throughout those two books and from playing the cash flow game. So I would say, yeah, there's certainly more efficient uses of your time. Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates. And if there's any people in whether it's the property space, crypto space, stock space that you think are absolute must-listens to, or watches, or reads for that matter, put their names in the comments section below. I'd be interested to hear who some of your favorite names in the spaces are. Ultimately, this is a place where it's really about sharing and really, making everyone in the space more intelligent, because ultimately we all want to be succeeding together. But anyway, guys, see you in the next video.